The Not-So-Great Pretender by Reishibu Ujiha. Chapter 5. Tony has a plan. Well, like most things that don't directly relate back to science, the armor, or SI, Tony has at least 12% of a plan. Jarvis is, like always, in charge of the other 88%. They have a system worked out, and Tony has all the faith in the world that Jay will pull through for him if push comes to shove. If not, then you can always call Rhodey, who is, despite what everyone always thinks, normally down for whatever shenanigans Tony can think of, as long as they don't involve things like unprovoked/unjustified murder or treason. Or, oddly enough, anything to do with this entire state of Delaware. Rhodey, for some reason, has a mental block on the entire state, but has never actually been able to explain to Tony why. After all these years of Rhodey's adamant refusal to step foot in any part of Delaware, Tony's reached the conclusion that he's pretty sure Rhodey was traumatized there in another universe or something. The point is that Tony has a plan that should help him give Barnes those few final pushes over the edge. It's time to get aggressive, to get up close and personal, and see just how much heat the Winter Soldier can really take. Tony's looking forward to it. It's official. Stark's actively trying to drive him mad. Bucky knows it. No matter what Steve says or how much he protests, Bucky knows that Stark's got it in for him. But to be fair, if Steve told him this guy was blue these days, Bucky would have to find a window and check. That's the level of confidence Bucky has where Steve's word outside of the battlefield is concerned these days. So yeah, Stark's out to get him. It's the only explanation. He's everywhere Bucky goes these days with his sarcasm and his fluffy hair. The man's practically haunting Bucky's footsteps with his stupidly attractive doe eyes and his ridiculous Iron Man paraphernalia. It's a 24-hour assault on the senses, a full-blown siege of the mind. If it keeps on like this, then Bucky's either going to run gibbering mad into the night, never to be seen again, or he's going to finally shut Stark up by hitting him. Right in that entirely too entrancing mouth of his. With his own mouth. Repeatedly! Because by that point, the only option besides retreat will be mouth-to-mouth combat. Either way, Bucky knows he's close to snapping, and when that finally happens, it's going to be a toss-up as to which of the two he does. It also, Bucky is only mildly ashamed to admit, depends at least a little bit on what Stark's wearing at the time. If it's one of his ridiculous I am Iron Man t-shirts, then Bucky will probably have to deal with outrunning Steve for the rest of his life. If it's one of those tank tops that clings to him like a second skin and shows off way too much olive toned skin, well, if that happens, then all bets will probably be off. Bucky is a man of simple tastes these days. Tony Stark, fresh from his workshop, hair erect and dressed in low-slung sweats and a clinging tank top, just happens to line up with most of them. Damn. It's early morning when Bucky comes across the Holy Grail in the form of a video. He watches it once, twice, 3 times, and feels his own incredulity grow with every viewing. The video is subjectively perfect. Stark's somber-toned in a way Bucky's never seen him outside of the most serious of battles. Seriousness aside, he's still naturally compelling, still draws the eye and someone's attention like a magnet. He's especially interesting to Bucky with the way that Bucky can see the telltale signs of barely concealed wounds beneath his carefully applied makeup. Added to that is the fact that the dark, non-flashy suit he's wearing doesn't hide the way he's obviously favoring his left side. Stark looks calm and open in a way that oozes authenticity in Bucky's opinion as he announces to the world that he is Iron Man. It's a video of the infamous press conference where Stark had, according to popular opinion, tried to deflect attention off of the real pilot of the Iron Man armor. It's obviously baloney. Heck, the look of outrage, disbelief, and flashes of bitterness that dance across Stark's face before he locks it down would have been enough to convince Bucky he was being honest on the spot. Now, with months of Stark being blatantly obvious about his identity, Bucky can't understand how no one had believed the man. That's going to change, though, if Bucky has his way about things. Because this video, the sincerity Stark practically oozes at the camera, might be enough to make Steve finally believe him. Or at least he really hopes it will be, because Bucky's running out of options by this point. Steve clears his throat slightly, brow furrowed and mouth turned down in concentration. You've given me a lot to think about, Buck. Just give me a bit, alright? I'll get back to you, I swear. Bucky watches Steve leave the room, feeling more than slightly underwhelmed. Steve's reaction to the press conference video and Bucky's admittedly impassioned speech about Stark's identity had been less than what Bucky had been expecting. But then again, maybe Bucky's reading too much into it. Maybe this finally got through to Steve and now he's really thinking about it, is connecting the dots, as it were. Maybe Bucky will finally be free of this hell crafted out of other people's obliviousness. Bucky gets his answer 2 days later when he and Stark come up together from the workshop. They'd spent the afternoon together going over some adjustments for Bucky's arm and then having an increasingly heated debate over everything from mantis shrimp to the merits of rollerblades in a battle situation. The elevator stops on the common floor and they step out together. Bucky's not really paying attention, secure in the knowledge that Jarvis is pretty much all-knowing and would warn him of any danger to himself, but most especially to Stark. Plus, he's willing to admit to being distracted by the way Stark's eyes light up when he talks about his plans for a water filtration system he's been cooking up. That's why the loud cracking sound and the cheers that greets the both of them the second they turn the corner catches him so off guard. Bucky's halfway in front of Stark, a knife in one hand and the other reaching for the gun he's not wearing, when he freezes. The rest of the team, including an amused-looking Rhodes and a blank-faced Fury, is gathered in the living room of the common floor. The loud crack came from a grinning Clint and Wilson, who were both holding what look like some kind of streamer poppers in their hands. The floor in front of both of them is littered with confetti and crepe paper. They only capture Bucky's attention for a split second, though, because his eyes are immediately caught and held by what's hanging above the gathered team. Happy intervention! The large and surprisingly well-made banner screams in huge blacky gold letters. Oh crap. Stark whispers at his side. Not again. Bucky? Steve chooses that moment to step forward. We're doing this because we care about you. Oh, sweet baby second, it's not for me. Stark slumps in relief and goes to move away from Bucky's side. Bucky moves on instinct and reaches out to hook his fingers in the collar of Stark's ridiculous t-shirt. He tugs Stark back to his side with barely any effort and settles his middle hand on the back of his neck in a silent gesture to stay. There's no way Bucky's doing this, whatever it's supposed to be, alone. Besides, something's telling him that this all loops back to Stark somehow anyways. Most things in Bucky's life do, these days. Rhodey, Stark whines, but it's easy for Bucky to ignore. Stark doesn't try to get away from him again, though. Only reaches his hands out in the direction of Rhodes, who isn't even paying attention anymore because he seems to be doing his best to smother himself in a pillow. He's obviously trying to conceal his laughter if the way his shoulders are shaking is any indication. Stevie, Bucky says with an applaudable amount of calm, what is going on here? It's an intervention, boss. Wilson calls from across the room and Bucky flips him off on reflex alone. Wilson always provokes that reaction from him for some reason. We're worried about you, Buck. I'm worried about you, Steve says gently as he steps forward some more, hands outstretched like Bucky's a skittish animal he needs to gentle. This obsession of yours. Well, we thought it was time we talked to you about it. See what there is we can do to help. Because that's all we want to do, Buck. Help you. My obsession. Bucky's eyes drag from Steve's concerned face back up to the banner. It really is attention-grabbing with its dark red background and golden letters. There's also a concerning amount of glitter. Bucky's fully ready to blame Clint and Wilson for the entire thing, even if the laser-precise edges of the letters scream Natasha, and the overall color scheme and layout screams Steve. This, whatever this is, was obviously a group effort. We know you've had a hard time getting adjusted after everything. Steve keeps going earnestly. I had a hard time too, but the team, well, they helped pull me out of it. So we want to do that for you too. Bucky's eyes track back to Steve, then back to the banner. Back to Steve in his khakis and pressed shirt. Back to the red and gold banner. Back to Steve with his stupid hair and puppy eyes. Back to the red and gold Wait. No. No! Bucky refuses to believe this is really happening to him. But, like with so many other things in his life, the unbelievable seems determined to keep coming true. We need to talk about how you're obsessed with Tony being Iron Man. Steve finally gets to the point. Letting your feelings for the two of them get twisted up like this isn't healthy, Buck. Let us help you. Beside him, Stark giggles with glee. Bucky feels absolutely no guilt at using his hold on the back of his neck to push him to the ground. The intervention is actually pretty nice once Bucky stops trying to strangle Steve and Rhodes stops basically screaming in laughter. There's music and fruit drinks. The team comes by and tells him how much they care about him, even Clint and Wilson. Rhodes manages to look him in the eye for an entire 6 seconds before he breaks down again and stumbles away. The Hulk drew him a pretty cool card, and Bruce, as it turns out, has baked a truly massive chocolate orange cake with toffee bits. Bucky feels no shame in eating half of it on his own because it's his intervention, and that means the cake is his too. It's good enough that 2 pieces, and halfway through Steve's next heartfelt speech, his mood has mellowed out a bit. He doesn't even mind the way Stark pits bits and pieces of it off of his plate like the scavenger he not so secretly is. Instead, Bucky just sighs and makes sure he gives him most of the icing off his portion as well. An hour in, and Fury swoops down on him like the giant candy bat he is. Good luck with that, Fury says as he dips his head towards where Stark's currently hanging off of Bruce's arm. You're going to need it, poor bastard. Before Bucky can riddle out exactly what Fury means, the man drops 2 extra large bags of candy on his lap and swoops back away. Finally, Bucky shrugs, pockets one of the bags of candy, and automatically holds the other out to Stark, who's already making a beeline for him. Maybe interventions aren't so bad after all. Tony steps back from the mirror, polishing rag in hand. Yes, this is perfect. Truly a masterpiece. Tony has once again outdone himself. Just as I think you cannot outdo yourself, you somehow rise to new heights, sir. Jarvis chimes in solemnly. Or perhaps you sink to new depths. It is, I have found, rather debatable. I know, baby boy, Tony says proudly, chest heavy with emotion. It's the burden we geniuses have to bear. Your humility is truly your greatest strength. Jarvis snips. You know, Tony props his hands on his hips, head tilted to the side as he stares at the armor. I almost feel bad about this, what with the intervention and all. Are you having second thoughts, sir? Jarvis seems genuinely surprised and curious. Please, Jay. Tony brings a hand up to tap at the arc reactor. Don't be offensive. Second thoughts are for quitters. As you say, sir, Jarvis replies. As you say. The battle's nothing serious, not really. Just AIM goons intent on being annoying like they normally are at least once a month. Overall, they're really nothing to worry about. Which is a good thing considering how Bucky freezes when Stark shows up on the scene, landing on the street directly in front of him. Bucky blinks, takes a moment to internalize just what he's seeing, and then forcibly shuts that part of his mind down. He can't deal with this right now. Later, maybe. Definitely. But not now. Bucky's discovered over the past 3 hours that he can't get drunk anymore no matter how hard he tries. And sitting with his back against the window of his floor's living room, surrounded by a sea of empty liquor bottles, he's actively trying. He's pretty sure most people would be dead by now if they drank even half of the liquor he has in the past few hours. Yet another sin he can lay at Hydra's doorstep. And at the moment, it's the one that's hurting him the most. Well, an infuriatingly familiar voice chimes in. Jay said you were down here trying to drown yourself, but I can honestly say this wasn't what I was expecting. There's a clink of bottles and the padding of footsteps, and then Bucky can feel Stark crouch down at his side. A hand comes up and pets at his hair. Did you knock over a liquor store or something, Goldstown? Stark asks. Am I gonna have to hide you from the fuzz? Bucky just makes a grumbling sound in the back of his throat as he curls in on himself tighter where he's balled up on the floor, depressingly sober. Aw, use your people words. Stark tugs lightly at his hair. And that right there? That's the breaking point! Bucky surges up out of his curled up ball and into Stark's space so fast that the other man jolts back with a small yelp. Bucky doesn't let him fall backwards though. Instead, he reaches out, curls both hands in the front of Stark's tank top, and pulls him close until their noses are practically touching. How could they not know? Bucky's hands clench in Stark's tank top. He can hear the desperation in his own voice, knows it's mirrored in his expression. I have no idea what you're talking about, Klondike. Stark tells him with a ragged sort of determination. Bucky knows that it's because, by this point, he's in too deep to take any other stance. I have literally watched you step out of the armor. Bucky shakes him just a bit. It's custom built for your pocket-sized butt. You put a decal across the back that says Tony Stark is driving. There. Tony reaches up and pats him lightly on the shoulders. Obviously, it's all a coincidence. Although you've got to admit that decal is a work of art. They were so stupid. To his horror, Bucky could feel actual tears well up in his eyes. They're stupid. We're all going to die someday because they're too stupid to live. Aw, Bucky, babe, I'm proud of you. Tony practically coos at him as Bucky hunches over so that his face is buried in the crook of his neck. The first step is admitting there's a problem, and you've just done that. Now the healing can begin. And Bucky, well, he's reaching his breaking point, and Tony is wearing one of those clingy tank tops. So he does the only thing he really can do. He picks his head up, pulls Tony even closer, and finally kisses him. It's deep and hot and heady. Tony tastes like sugar and coffee, and his goatee scratches against Bucky's own stubble in a way that makes Bucky think about beard burn and red marks left on Olive's skin. It's so good. Oh, sweetheart, Tony says breathlessly when they finally pull apart, both of them flushed and panting, hands buried in each other's hair. Welcome to the dark side. Shut up and kiss me, Tony. Bucky ups in exasperation. Then he makes sure that Tony's mouth is too busy to do anything else.